Hello and welcome to the Faces of Africa Pocket Edition, where we dissect and discuss the topics covered in our weekly documentary show, which takes you through the continent's history, cultures, and major issues through exploring great personalities. This week on Faces of Africa podcast, we are showing you a documentary on conservation, specifically a story on giraffes. It is called A Silent Extinction, an interesting documentary, very well done. My name is Fatia Mohammed Noor. I have here
Jeff Modé.
Jeff, it's been a while since we did a podcast with you.
It's been a minute.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
But I think we have an interesting, we're going to have an interesting discussion on the podcast today with regard to this documentary. Now, after watching the documentary, what do you think of its storyline and the camera work from the perspective of a director or a producer of a documentary?
This documentary is a beautifully shot documentary. I love the shots, I love the pacing, I love the music, and much more, I love the color grade on this documentary. It's pretty well put together.
100% I agree, because even watching it myself, I am just amazed by the quality of the pictures, the visuals, and then you kind of feel like you're included in the documentary through the pictures, right?
Yeah, correct. And then it's out in the African savannah, so the grading is even warm.
Exactly.
It's giving you that warm, fuzzy feeling. You just want to go on safari.
100%. That's what I was thinking. Very nice.
Yeah.
But as Faces, we do a lot of conservation stories. Do you think that's still relevant nowadays when you have more urgent stories, having the attention of media? For instance, the wars that's happening around the world, like Gaza, like Ukraine, and all the geopolitical tensions. Maybe are you worried as a documentary director or producer that stories like the giraffe story would not get much attention?
It's a point of concern knowing that the big stories will always take a precedence, right? But that's where Faces of Africa documentary series comes in, where we can be able to focus on issues like conservation, issues like giraffes extinction and raising the alarm via media, or the bees going extinct via our documentary series. So yes, in as much as I'm worried that they might not get their attention, there's also a channel as Faces where we can be able to be telling these stories and not focusing on just the big stories out there, but also something that is impacting us directly.
Yeah, that's true, because a lot of news stuff that we see, of course, is quite important, but also stories on conservation is very important, especially to Africans, and there is a community of people who are interested in conservation stories.
Correct.
So I think that's how Faces comes in.
Correct.
So it's June 5th today as we record this podcast, which is World Environmental Day.
Yeah.
And of course, at CGTN, we do a lot of stories and documentaries to match the occasion.
Yes.
So does Faces, of course.
Yes.
What do you think, what role do you think media plays in this narration? And is there a limit, we can do a media in protecting these animals?
No, there's no limit. I think what we need to do is just keep telling the stories. Just keep putting these stories on the front burner, because what happens with human beings, we forget. Once something goes into the back burner, we forget quickly. But as media, there's no limit. We can continue telling these stories just to keep reminding people that, hey, this is our heritage and we need to protect it. I think our work is cut out for us as media to keep telling these stories and to keep repeating it and to make sure that it's top of mind for for our people, for the government, for the officials, and for even the conservationists. To just highlight what they are doing to protect our flora and fauna.
100%, because I think also it's very important to note that communities itself are affected by, these environmental issues, and stories to do with animals or the environment are important, and that's why the media comes in.
Correct.
And ensures that they tell such stories.
Sure.
So Faces of Africa has done a number of stories when it comes to animal protection. For instance, we have Ocean Without Boundaries, Tides of Life, Wangari the Eco-Fighter, and The Matriarch, which focus on elephants in South Africa. Very amazing story also.
Beautiful documentary.
Very well
I love
done.
it. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
So in almost all of these stories, the topic of animal-human conflict is mentioned. It's not just about incidents where animals would wander into the human habitat, but it's also about, government policies where the rights of animals seem to trump that of humans, especially those that live around the natural reserves. How do you see it? What are your thoughts on it? Do you see any potential in telling such stories in the future?
Yes, there's a lot of potential of telling such stories in future because of the rapid population growth, because of urbanization. You'll find that humans are actually the ones encroaching into the wildlife lands, right?
Yeah.
And of course, if you encroach into the wildlife land, there will definitely be the human-animal conflict, right?
Right.
When you move into lands that the animals used to roam freely, you get that the land size will decrease, and then the animals won't have food, right? And then of course they will stray into your farms and cause harm to the humans. So yes, there is so much potential that we need to tell these stories and keep telling these stories so that we can come up with innovative ways of preventing this. For example, in just the lands that are next to the Masai Mara, there's a very innovative way of keeping the elephants off the farms.
Right.
This young man came up with this idea of just having beehives along the fence.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yes. So elephants fear the bees. They don't want to get stung, so they will never come close to that fence that has beehives. It's very cost effective.
Right.
It's cheap. It's not an electric fence. And then there's also it's keeping the elephants away and protecting the farms, and also giving the farmer honey.
100%. That's a new fact I didn't know about.
That's a win-win.
That's very interesting. Thank you so much, Jeff, for your time. I think that's a needed conversation that we need to have.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Remember, you can watch this documentary on CGTN on Sunday at 12:30 East African time, and we upload this podcast every Saturday. Stay tuned for more.